A very good evening to all the participants and a warm welcome to a fantastic Quicksilver wheat and grand experience in the Toastmaster world. Toastmaster Rajatji, who has chosen to walk this path at a stage where most people would decide that now it is time for me to share my learnings rather than still sipping in and soaking in more learnings in life. So the very first thing what exemplifies his persona is that learning is continuous and there is no end date to that in any of our life if you really want to make the best out of the best version out of our own selves. And Rajatji had fabulous academic credentials. He comes from the Ivy League in his graduate as well as postgraduate college in this country, worked in multinational outside of India for decades altogether. And in that time, we usually, most of the Indian men would nudge their wives to do things. But here is one gentleman who took the nudge from spouse who joined the Toastmaster world before him and got involved and took it. So that is yet another sign of how judicious and how much learning, pro learning person that he is. And with that, I would welcome onto the e-podium Toastmaster Rajatji. The e-podium is yours, sir.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, and I'm really glad to be here in USpeak Club. It's for the first time, actually, I think I'm interacting with all of you. Today's session is interesting for me also, because usually whenever we speak of Toastmasters, we always think of personal development. That is, as a person, I should be a better speaker, and I should be able to give opinions, take part in discussions, and so on. However, there are many occasions where people doubt whether in a corporate Toastmasters clubs have a place, because a corporate anyway provides a good platform on its own through its internal training programs, HRD departments, learning centers, where specific trainings are given already to employees to develop various aspects of skills, right? And the question always comes, does a corporate really need Toastmaster clubs? Now, I am in a position to answer that a bit because I had, like you, I had also been part of a big corporate who had their own training facilities, but they also had a very, very old Toastmaster club of employees. I think very recently they had their 600th session. So let me share with you a small presentation with the help of which I will put forth my views on this subject. Is it visible, the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So as I started saying with the question, does a corporate setup need a Toastmasters club? Now, I think what we should look at is what is different about a corporate compared to an individual where community clubs are there. In my opinion, what I saw myself when I worked in the corporate situation with teams as a team leader, and also where I was part of other teams, that the main crux of the matter when you're working with teams in an organization is how do we optimize team knowledge. And by team knowledge, I mean the knowledge bank that individual team members carry with them, doing various functions of their jobs, knowing their jobs at various levels with various degrees of efficiency. That knowledge lies with the team individuals, need to come onto a common basis. That is, the widening of the knowledge base happens. The other aspect which makes a team more powerful in what it does and makes it more effective is when the knowledge base is deepened. And by deepened, I mean when the senior members are able to impart some knowledge to the junior members as to how to do things better. They're able to guide. They're able to be small leaders from their own front. So this process of teams that is there in the organization, which takes the organization forward, and how the teams work is very, very important for an organization's success. Now, if you really look at it, widening a knowledge base is actually based on communication, how well the team members communicate with each other and they share their knowledge. And deepening of a knowledge base, that is the senior members guiding junior members, leading a team and so on and so forth, are basically leadership skills. So in order to make the total knowledge base inside a team very, very effective, all the members need to be good in communication, and all of them, at least some of them, have to be good in leadership. Then only the team becomes really effective. Now, Toastmasters is such an organization and such a process, more than an organization, which is able to help any individual, he may be a team member in an organization or otherwise, in both communication and leadership skills, right? Now, as I said earlier, most of the corporates, like I'm sure your company may also have it, may have their own training cell, and they regularly hold programs on communication, leadership, time management, this and that, which is identified at the beginning of the year and carried out throughout the rest of the year. So what is basically different about Toastmasters in a corporate setup? Why should it be additionally required? There must be an answer to this because there are so many clubs which are corporate clubs. So let's look at what's different. There's one thing which is significantly different about in the process of Toastmasters. If you recollect this quote by Ralph Smedley, who's the founder, which probably indicates the basic philosophy by why Toastmasters is a success, is that the process of Toastmastering is very, very enjoyable. Now, there is one thing which I can assure you after having attended many, many training courses which are done by the company, that mostly they are not enjoyable. They are a process sometimes that we sit through, that we sometimes we're scared of, worried about. Performance anxiety is there. And we also wonder what would be the result of the training, how it is going to be used. Enjoyment is limited, whereas in a Toastmasters process, the way it is done, enjoyment is there. Let's look at a few specifics why enjoyment is there. Firstly, it's not a class-based system, it's not a classroom. It is club-based, as you evidently know. And you may be an MT in the organization and I may be maybe an executive. But when we are both part of the Toastmasters Club, both of us are equal. That level vanishes, and that anxiety related to that level's recognition also vanishes. Secondly, the courses or the projects that we want to do are a la carte, means the individual can choose, maybe helped by his team leader, helped by his mentor, as to what is good for him. And it's not a set menu, like it's in an official training course that I held throughout the year. There's a lot of choice involved, and choice means enjoyment. The pace can be individual. Again, since it's not a classroom training, everybody is not taken through the same thing at the same time. You learn at your own speed. Fourth, we present our speeches to members and not to bosses. When I used to attend trainings in my own company, and I'll be presenting something and I'll see my manager sitting there, listening to the presentation, there'll be always an anxiety as to how it is being perceived and whether he's judging me on this. In the Toastmasters, the presentation is not to a friend, it's to a member, it's to another club officer. It's not a boss at all. the feedback that comes after the speeches are given, after the performance is done, it's not like an HRD performance review. It's not going to affect your career. It comes from the experienced members in the club who tell you how your communication could be better, right? That's enjoyable. And very, very importantly, when we are practicing leadership projects in Toastmasters, it is offline, which means it's not a company project, right? A live company project is a much more anxious thing to practice on, because I'll always be worried. If I do, can I do it? If I do badly, what will happen? And even my boss may be worried that I give this job to Rajat, God knows whether he'll screw it up. Now, this is offline. You are going to take projects inside Toastmasters, which, whether you succeed or not, doesn't have any effect on the company's bottom line. So isn't that an enjoyable thing to do? So this is what's different in Toastmasters compared to what is a company's in-house training program. Well, it's going to be enjoyable, no doubt. But the question is it effective? And by effective, I mean, if I, as a team manager, feel that these are the places where my team members should improve, whether in communication or leadership, does the Toastmaster structure provide this tool of improving those aspects? Let's take a look. Now, let's say communication skills. So when I again was a team leader, and I'd be sitting in a team meeting, the thing which I'll mentally telling myself to the members is, please open your mouth. What do you mean by that? There will invariably be some team members who are not attentive, who are not listening at all to what's going on. And then you ask them a question, they're lost as to what's happening. Or they may be attentive, but they are not participating. They don't want to speak up, tell their opinion on their own. Or even if I'm asking somebody for an opinion, he doesn't give it. He's shy. He may have an opinion which is not sharing. Or they may not be comfortable presenting things formally. Like there is a particular subject on which one team member is good, and we want to know about it, what he knows on that subject, or something which is done, which is of value to the company, and we all want to share in it, and this fellow cannot present. Or if I'm the team member, I feel shy about presenting. So these are the aspects in a team where if communication improves, the team gains. Now, let's see what is there in Toastmasters which helps these. You know, in a typical Toastmaster session, most of you would be aware, but for the benefit of those who may be new in today's group, a Toastmaster session has firstly prepared speeches. It has impromptu speeches, which are called table topics. It has got certain roles which are played by different role players like grammar, hesitation, and so on, giving feedback on those. And formal feedback to speakers on whatever speeches they gave or some projects they did. So these are the four sorts of things about which Toastmasters speak in a club session. So how does that help us in opening their mouths? See, when we take up roles, like grammarian, like an evaluator, or an active listener, who's somebody who gives quiz questions at the end of the session to the audience, these are focused at developing these attention skills. It forces a person to become more attentive, and becoming attentive in a meeting is a habit. This sort of role taking helps people to develop that habit. When people take up roles, like I said, grammarian or accounter, timer, and they present reports, this is a sort of forced participation in a group on a relatively small matter, right? So this willy-nilly pulls those team members into participating inside the team activity. Impromptu speaker, table topic, a very good tool of ensuring participation of people, getting them into that habit of participation. Opinion, giving an opinion. Again, impromptu speaking, ask for an opinion from a person. So it improves his skill of presenting whatever opinion he has in a coherent manner in a very brief period of time. And if it's a speech evaluator, he'll be doing it in a more elaborate manner. But giving an opinion is a skill that has to be developed if it has to be structured and effective. And these help in opinion development. Similarly, the skills of giving a proposal, presenting a case to the group, when people give prepared speeches in Toastmasters, they develop this skill. And there is so much variety of what sort of speeches are given. Presenting a proposal, researching, software, storytelling, and the way the speech is given using vocal variety, descriptive language, even if it is a report on maybe a program structure or a system development that is being done, when we use tools of speaking, it makes that speech much more interesting. And people will not nod off, even if it's a boring subject, if you know what tools to use to keep people's attention on for those 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 20 minutes, whatever the presentation period may be. So prepared speaking skills are very important. It is sometimes an impression that companies have, people in the company have, that good communication is required only by salespeople. Not so. For the salesperson, because he interacts with outside people, he has to be good in communication. But I know many successful salespeople who are not good in communication also. So there's a lot of other things which go into it. Whereas if you're in a team which doesn't require you to speak normally, like I used to handle logistics at one time, the team members used to be working on the computer all day. Where is the need to speak? But if you read this, what I'm talking about here, it is required for those members to give their opinion, to participate, to give a presentation on what they're doing in order to increase the knowledge base of the team, right? So it's important that team members, even in organizations or even in teams which are not sales related, which are back office related, or which are maybe working more with systems, they also need to know how to communicate their things. Now, the other aspect, which is that Toastmasters focuses on, is leadership. Now, in what way is, first of all, leadership incorporated into the Toastmasters syllabus or curriculum? Oh, before that, like I did for communication, let me share with you what I felt was missing from some of the members from the leadership point of view when I kept on interacting with them. Will he, won't he? What does this wedding mean? It means that will he develop into a better person or won't he? I want to know. As a team leader, I want to know that. But how do I get to know that? Will he be able to handle a meeting on his own? Would he be able to lead a team? Would this person under me be able to manage a project on his own? And is he good enough to inspire a group? Now, how do I know these things? In the job that we do day in and day out, it's not possible unless we actually give them a task which they perform in this manner, using the skills which are required here. Now, what does Toastmaster have that can mesh with these? Let's take a look at what Toastmasters curriculum gives us. First of all, it gives us a focus area of learning. So depending on which is the area of mastery this particular person requires, the path can be chosen either by him by his own choice or with the help of his team leader, his manager, his mentor, whoever can evaluate well which is the aspect which needs development in him. It can be a gap filling exercise or it can be a forward development exercise. And if a team member says that, boss, in 5 years, I want to sit where you're sitting. I want to be a team leader. And definitely you'd like to develop him. How do you do that? You may not have scope in the operational system itself to give separate projects to develop this. Toastmasters provides a channel for development. And apart from choosing which particular set of skills to impart to him, the number of projects which are there goes up to 63. Of course, nobody does all 63. But we are free to pick and choose those which are going to add on to the skills that we want the person to inculcate. So if you go back to the points that I was mentioning, that what skills do we want our team members to get? Handle a meeting. See, there are projects in Toastmasters managing a difficult audience, which actually makes that person practice this, how to handle a difficult audience, how to manage a panel discussion. It's a scope that the team member may not get otherwise of developing this skill, reaching a consensus. If you're leading a team, do a project on leading a team in any situation, maybe inside Toastmasters, maybe outside the scope of the company. Successful collaborations between, say, Toastmaster clubs or in your social circles, which you're getting a platform to present to your group saying how you've done that. Understanding conflict resolution, mentoring, these are all aspects which will make that person develop as a leader and will give an opportunity to the team leader to evaluate whether this person is doing well in this particular aspect. Similarly, how do we give the person a project to manage? Inside the work situation, it may not be possible. But you do a project in Toastmasters, managing successful events, planning and implementation, high-performance leaderships, which are not necessarily inside the scope of Toastmasters or the organization. And he will have some meat to get his teeth into and show what he can do in terms of managing a project. Similarly, the team leader needs to inspire. There are projects which communicate change to the group, inspiring the audience, persuasive speaking. Now, these are all skills which a member develops. He becomes a good leader as the months roll on. So, we can see that there are projects in Toastmasters which can offline. By offline, I mean not related to the corporate work, can develop a person, can help a team leader evaluate how the development is going on, whether he has potential in this particular aspect. Now, we are talking about team members, how to develop them, how to increase knowledge base, how to deepen knowledge base. But what about the boss? You're the boss, maybe. I was a boss for some time. I was also a subordinate in another team. But if I'm the boss, I think there is one skill which Toastmaster teaches, which nobody else teaches well, which is how to give feedback. Now, I was sharing with somebody just before I started that actually how to give feedback is necessary not only when you're teaching your team members things that they are junior to you. Sometimes some team members are jolly senior and you're becoming a new manager, and how the hell do you handle him? He knows everything he feels. Still, you have to give him feedback. The process of evaluation in Toastmasters teaches how to give a structured, implementable, and motivating feedback. And that's a very, very important skill for any boss to have, and also for individuals to know how to give this feedback to other members, peer feedback. But definitely for the boss, this is a very important skill to know. And this Toastmaster teaches like nobody else. In conclusion, I'd like to say one thing. Albert Einstein once very famously said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And in a lot of companies, through the training courses, through off-site gatherings of the employees alone, we try to get different results by doing the same thing again. But friends, Toastmaster is something which is different. It's quite different. And it's worth trying because the result is going to be different. Toastmasters gives a different pathway, if I can say, for a different result. And it is an enjoyable process and yet a very effective process where the needs of a team in a corporate situation are very well met by the design of the projects that are there in Toastmasters. So that was a brief overview of my own learning when I've been in my own corporate situation and also interacting with the corporate club. That's all from my side. In case you have any questions, we can maybe handle it first.
Sir, a question from my side. What is the real weapon grade communication style? Is it assertive or a humorous one? What is the real, that cuts across different milieu and different settings in corporate? A assertive style or a humorous style?
Well, there are many styles. Assertive and humorous are two of them. In fact, in a corporate, I don't think everybody tries a humorous style too much, but there is a assertive style, there is a participative style, there is a inspiring style. These are all types of communication. And one has to look at two things when choosing a communication style for yourself. One is, of course, which communication style comes more naturally to you. You'll be most effective in that. Some people are naturally assertive. And when they try to become collaborative, for example, they become a very miserable failure because they're all the time, they're holding themselves in check. Similarly, like I'm a more collaborative person and I used to find it very difficult to be assertive. But what would be my suggestion is you should stick to your own style, but not just your own style. Maybe 50% of situations or 60% of situations you deal with in your own style, but you have to learn how to have these other styles as well for specific situations. Like I was saying, when I used to supervise a senior team member, and if I communicate, adapt an assertive style with him, it never used to work because he would nod his head and go away and then do his own thing. So I had to do a fair mix of collaborative with him, that I am on your side, I'll go with you, let me also learn from you. And beach mein, you keep putting in the assertiveness. Then it becomes more acceptable. So communication style, of course, is a subject on its own. In some project inside Toastmasters talks about communication styles. But I feel that you have to use a mix, stick to your own style, but keep on adapting the others, know what the others are, and keep adapting, depending on what sort of a situation you're dealing with, what sort of person. Does that answer you, Lingaraj?
Yeah, I think there is some connectivity issue from Toastmaster
Lingaraj.
Lingaraj's side.
Yeah.
And I have a question in my mind. Like there are two roles, uh, general evaluator and Toastmaster of the day. So how these two roles improve a person's communication style and leadership style as well? Uh, yeah.
Yeah, these two roles are actually quite different. A general evaluator's role is fairly obvious because it improves the communicating feedback, the way feedback is given. First, of course, it improves listening skills because right from the beginning of the meeting to the end of a 2-hour meeting, you're on your toes because you have to keep a note on everything. You have to know every role very well, what every role player is supposed to do, what are the do's and don'ts, what are the good things which are supposed to be done, bad things to be avoided, and you're giving a feedback on each of them. So one has to have thorough knowledge, but knowledge apart, that can anyway come with experience. Listening skills is something which is an ultimate thing in a general evaluator, and also how to give feedback, which will be a structured feedback, an implementable feedback that you'll tell him this is how it is to be done, and it is still motivating. The language which we are using is gentle, right? It's not very harsh. So that is one skill which a general evaluator develops mostly, listening and communicating a feedback. A Toastmaster of the day, on the other hand, is more like an MC of an event. So here he actually learns 2-3 things. I'll first say, just as a pure skill, later we'll relate it to corporate, that first he learns how to manage a session, meaning how to have the things in sequence in his own notepad, so to say. Sequencing, what will happen after what. And in case something goes wrong, how to patch it in. This is a skill which needs some homework. So pre-meeting preparation, that is one skill one learns when one does Toastmaster of the Day roles. And of course, one is also running a team. throughout the role. So some amount of creativity is also there. You're introducing speakers, how to be enthusiastic in speech. That skill comes in. Because for every speaker, you have to convey some enthusiasm as a Toastmaster of the day in what is going to happen now, right? Like an MC does. You could have interacted with the speakers prior, asking them some questions beforehand and built it into the introductions. So there is a great scope of doing pre-meeting homework in a Toastmaster of the day meeting. And in fact, if I am going to do something like moderating a meeting in a corporate situation, I feel that I myself felt that when I've done Toastmaster of the day roles, it helps me to moderate meetings as well, where of course the meeting is not very aggressive. It's not a disruptive meeting. It anyway has a sort of agenda, and you're driving that agenda. Maybe you have called for the meeting, so obviously it falls upon you. Even though you're not a senior member, it may still fall upon you to drive the meeting. That you say, okay, first point is this, and then you summarize and say, okay, this is what we have understood. Let's go to the next one. Mr. Such and such, can you please wait your turn, and so on and so forth. So these are things which TOD also does to a certain extent in a meeting. So I think there is a certain skill which comes in when one does Toastmaster of the day roles time and again, is to gradually it comes to a stage where we are able to handle meetings even without much preparation or with minimum preparation. Sometimes it will happen even in a corporate. You'll say, okay, today boss has not come. Devarshi, why don't you take the meeting forward? Right. And one should not be lost, right?
Correct.
So if you have been a Toastmaster of the day, you would have done some preparation before and at least see what are the agenda points, think a little about what I know about the agenda points, who are the people who know most about it. Some prior mental preparation is there. And then you launch, because you have done it in Toastmasters, you can do it here. Yeah.
That's true.
So I think these two value additions can happen.
Okay. And another thing I have seen while delivering a speech, I have seen it's a very bad experience, I would say. It may happen that someone was yawning. So what happens, and it may happen also that someone is very angry, or someone for some reason, so maybe he's disturbed, or so how to make that kind of eye contact? Should I avoid those people who are kind of making some unnatural expressions, or I would maintain eye contact with everybody? So these are the kind of challenges I have seen while I was delivering speeches in Toastmasters session. So I thought to have a discussion regarding this.
Okay, I presume you're talking about physical sessions, because online you are anyway looking at camera.
Correct. Right, physical sessions.
See, the trick of delivering physical speeches as a speaker is that although we are told that you should have eye contact with everybody, you need not have eye contact with everybody all the time. There is a need, suppose it's a 5 to 7 minute speech. Okay, what I usually do, even before starting the speech, I keep quiet and give an eye contact to more than half the people. Yeah. And then after starting speech also, within the first 2 minutes, the eye contact is more, spread more. Then in that process, then I choose maybe 5, 6 people with whom I will going to continue giving eye contact. Based on what? Based on people who are positive in their feedback to the speech. Yeah. Because see, I'm also a human being as a speaker. So when I see somebody receiving my speech well, my own energy level goes up of speaking. So I'll definitely avoid the yawner. I won't even try to make him interested in my particular speech, because I know when I look at him, my energy will go down. I'd rather look at the front row lady who's smiling at everything which I'm saying. Yeah. So you choose 5, 6 people spread across the room, and it will still give the impression of your eyes covering the room. When you're going from listener 1 to listener 2, your eyes traveling. So audience will still get the impression that you're speaking to all of them, but you spend more time with your gaze fixed on 5, 6 people spread across the room who are giving you positive vibes, and stick to that. I think that is you should do some favor to yourself also when giving a speech, in choosing who you're speaking to.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I got my answer. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ravi?
Yeah, I
Ravi,
actually had.
any
Yeah, I
question?
actually had a very. Yeah, I actually had a very similar question, which Devanshi have asked. Yeah. So how to handle the, I mean, expression of the audience? Sometimes some of the. So I think you have already covered that. So somebody may yawn, somebody maybe non attentive. So how to handle the audience? So that distraction. That actually
Yeah,
lowers the
that will be
confidence.
there. That will be there. In any case, see, when we try to make our speech more interesting, the number of bored people will go down, but still there will be 2, 3 fellows who are got a lot on their mind, so their mind is not on the speech. Maybe they're looking at the phone. So not being deliberately disruptive, but they're simply not interested. But that's part of life. I mean, we just have to let it go and focus on those who are interested.
Right.
One question I have from Rajat, like I have seen a lot of people like who speaks slowly, and there's a lot of people who speaks too fast. Uh, there are people who speak some word and then take some pause, and then again start talking. So, what is the correct way of communication? Like we should speak like the way we are speaking little fast, or we should change the way we should speak little slowly or too slowly. So, what is the way to speak? Means how much consistency should have while speaking the sentence or between the sentence? So that I have seen a lot of different kind of speaker who speaks in their different style. So should I adopt their style, or should I speak in my style?
I don't know what is your particular style. You're talking about the speed, right? See,
Yeah.
even when I speak, there are various times, various speeds. Now I am conversing with you, casual conversation. So my speed is a little higher. But when I was giving the presentation, I slowed down a bit because I was communicating ideas. Okay. So what I feel is you have to make that judgment as to how clear you are. And by clear, I mean clear in communicating the thought. See, let us understand one thing here. Compared to written matter, catching the ideas from the spoken matter is far more difficult from the audience's point of view. And it is always helpful to the audience to if the speaker is speaking slowly. Okay, like if we are speaking at this speed, you have enough time to absorb every bit of sentence which I'm talking. And the more difficult the concept which I'm talking about, the slower should my speech be. For example, if it is a research and presentation speech, I feel you should be slower than other speeches because there's going to be a lot of technical information, something the speaker will listen to and then think about, and then again he has to come back to what he is saying. So the speech should be slower in those cases. In an inspirational speech, it can be a little higher. But always, I feel that you should try out with some listener and ask him the speed at which I spoke. Was it okay? Was it understandable? Did you get everything which I was saying? So you will know this only after you try it out with some live listeners as to what is the correct speed for you. Now, inside the same speech, of course, there has to be variation in speed. Like what I usually follow is in a general inspirational speech, when I'm talking about concepts, I slow down. When I'm inside stories, I can be a little faster because it's a casual talk and very easy to absorb, right? But when after telling a story, you're talking about the idea of the story or what is the concept, philosophy behind the story, then you have to slow down a bit. Now, having said this, there is another aspect that you have to use effectively, which is a pause. Now, there is always a fear in your mind that if you don't keep on talking, the audience is going to go to sleep. It never happens. Let me give you an example. You have heard Lalu Prasad Yadav speak. What is his speed? Maybe 70 words per minute. Yeah, we speak at.
Yeah.
But when you listen to his speech, do you feel bored? You don't feel bored. You don't lose attention. And you're anxious to hear what is the next word which is going to come out. You hear the speeches of most politicians. They speak like in broken sentences with some pauses in the middle so that the audience absorbs whatever they are able to say fully. That is actually the best way to speak. But unfortunately, the politician has 2 hours to deliver his speech and we have only 7 minutes. So we cannot be as slow as Lalu Prasad Yadav. We have to optimize a bit. But definitely, I will say you try this as an experiment. When you give a speech at what you think is the correct speed, and then you slow it down deliberately and give pauses, record both and hear, and you'll find so much difference in the clarity that you're able to communicate, in the emphasis that you're able to give. You know, when I say this sentence, the emphasis that you're able to give, I could do it because there was a pause before this segment. If I had said the clarity they can communicate and the emphasis they can give, there is no space to give that emphasis, right? So when you break up your sentences a bit, put some natural pauses, you're able to emphasize certain parts of the sentence more. And definitely when you're changing situations, when you want to build up tension, when you want the audience to wait for a punchline, there has to be a deliberate pause. 1 second, 2 seconds, doesn't matter. Hold on to your throat, so to say, internally, and say, I will not speak. So I think the question of speed is a bit subjective, but definitely the slower you are, the clearer you are.
Right, yeah, thank you.
I think people have run out of questions.
So, Ruchira, Partho, and Probita, do you have any question?
I have a small question. This is regarding the physical movement. When we are just giving some speech or something like this, so we supposed to move our body like sometimes very frequently and sometimes very like we are just stand up and we are just delivering our speech. Which is the proper body language? Actually, we are trying to, when we are quite excited, right? At that time, we supposed to move our body and hands more. So I'd like to know, like, which is the best approach, like how to control this?
Well, we have our own gesture language, which is natural to us. In fact, what I usually do that when practicing speech, I don't practice the gestures to start with. Because when we are, the speech is going into the memory and we are practicing how to deliver, at the time, if you do it in front of a mirror, you'll see that your hands are moving, your body is moving with the speech. And if it's a natural flow in which you have some conviction in what you're saying, the gestures come automatically. However, what we have to watch out for is excessive gesturing and repetitive gesturing. These two things become distracting for the viewer. Excessive gesturing, of course, like when I'm speaking, if I keep on moving my hands, it's not required, although I may feel like doing so. So I should reserve the gestures for the times of emphasis. That you take your speech, you take the points of emphasis. And wherever there's an emphasis, if you move your hand, it will sink well. Yeah. So in a sentence, if you have emphasis coming in the second half, at that time, reserve the movement. Now, this needs choreography, of course. You cannot leave it totally to chance. But once you have practiced a speech as a speech, quite some time, and then you're going to focus on your body. At the time, just give a speech as it is and just look at the gestures. At the time, don't look at your voice. And see what you can cut down. There will always be an excess of gestures when you cut down that which is distracting. Keep those which are only for points of emphasis or demonstration of an action. if you say that I had a sweet, you need not say I had a sweet, not so much. Even if you say I had a sweet, it is enough. So the gestures, you think of a dancer, how graceful the gestures are. They're not random, yet they're suggestive. You see the dances with the Gopikas and the Radha dances, they're full of, they're acting out a story. But all the gestures are gentle, they don't jar, they don't detract from the song itself, right? So even in a speech, you look at your gestures like it should be like a dance move, which adds a little flavor to the words that you spoke at that point of time. So excessive gesturing to be reduced to the points of emphasis or of demonstration. And there are some typical gestures that we have, especially when we are beginners in the path of speaking, that somebody will 70% of the time have hands like this, or like this, or like keep on talking like this, that you have to watch out for. And first of all, if you have an excessive gesture, first practice without gesture. That is holding both hands rigidly by your sides. I say, okay, I have excessive gesture. First, let me cure myself and go to ground zero. Then you come back to your natural style. Once you practice the speech, natural style and emphatic gestures here and there. Stage movement is, of course, a different matter altogether. That doesn't come naturally. That you have to choreograph. The stage movement, especially in a physical meeting, is a very, very important tool, which is used firstly to segment your speech. That is, if a situation is changing from A to B, from your school to your college to your work, you change your position slightly to indicate to the audience that I am now at a different place, so to say, in my life. Similarly, coming closer to camera, going away, these are all ways of emphasizing the speech, which has to be choreographed. Otherwise, normally speaking, we'll either stand still and deliver a speech, or we'll probably hop from one leg to the other and deliver a speech. So stage movement has to be choreographed. I think I answered that question.
You. Yes, thank you very much. It was a good input for me. Thanks.
I have one question, and we have providing in our evaluations. This is one type of another speech, right? We have to give some feedback also. This is within our Toastmaster, or might be it's outside the Toastmaster, within the group, corporate group also. So this is the question: is the how do I give the feedback when it is the negative?
You have to give something positive first. That is a rule of Toastmasters, and not only Toastmasters, it's a rule of life. Even if you want to tell your wife the cooking could be better, you have to tell some positive first. You have to say at least that was a great effort. First time you're trying it and it came out so well. Only thing I feel this thing could have been slightly different. Same in a corporate. If somebody has done a particular project or he's finished a task and come and told you and you know that he's screwed up, you still don't fire him straight away. That's demotivating. You have to tell him that that was a very good effort. I mean, I trusted you with this for the first time and you went about it the right way, but I think you did not think of these aspects before you did this. So it is a skill of expressing something so that if there's a positive in the beginning, the person is willing to listen to you because he knows that you have his good at heart. You're a friend and your whatever negative feedback you have to give will be accepted. Whereas if you start with the negative, that person will write off your opinion straight away because nobody wants an ego bashing straight away, right? So whether it is somebody under you or it is a peer in the corporate or it's a friend in personal life or your wife or close relation, principle remains the same. Now I tell you, actually in our personal life, the sort of feedback I and my wife share with each other, the tone and tenor, it has changed. And believe me, she listens to me much more now.
Okay. And how do I say the no?
The no means somebody is proposing something and you want to say, no, I don't want to do it.
Do I? Yes. So that would be is a part of delivering a one type of speech. Say the no.
Saying the no is not a type of speech. Saying the no, look, have you heard anybody telling a no to you and you've not really minded? Has it happened?
Yes, that few times we should mind, because we are not justify myself. Every time we think that we are correct, and that time if we are not judgment correctly and just listening the no from the opposite side, that time we should hard.
Okay, I'm assuming what you're meaning is, let me answer what I understood, that somebody is making a proposal to you or asking you to do something and you want to say no to him or her. Is it that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. See, in all these situations, it happens in social situations also, that your friend may want you to go somewhere with him and you don't want to. And similarly in a job, in both cases, first, you have to communicate that you're happy that he thought about you. Okay. That I'm glad that you thought about me, that I could do this job well. I'd have been so happy to do it. Those statements have to come. Then you slip in that but. But can be anything. It may not be free, or it may be against your principles, or it may be that what the other person is planning is, you feel is totally wrong and you don't want to be part of it. All these things the other person will accept if the beginning that you say, the beginning sentences that you say, has a sense of positivity. That you say things like that. Oh, I'm really glad that you thought about me. I'm sure there are a lot more other people who would have done this job well for you. I'm truly honored. You know? However, I feel that the viewpoint from which you're approaching this problem is a little different from mine. And if I get involved, there'll be a lot of conflict of interest. So why don't I let it pass for this time? So these are ways of saying no, which is basically watered down versions, which is important so as not to offend the person. In case you want to work with him again, if you don't have need to work with him again, you can tell him no straight up. Like a beggar comes to the street and you tell him, "Aage jao," because you know that you're not going to interact with him again. But if it's your boss, you can't do that. So there you have to be more circumspect. Does that answer, Prabir?
Yes. Yes, sir. This is, I was looking the same thing. How do I say this?
I know we are running out of time, but I have one question. Can I put that?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah. So I have been into many public addressing. I mean corporate public addressing, where a senior manager or a director kind of people addresses, and so they are addressing like 300, 200 plus people at a time on a very very compact agenda. Okay, so yeah, everything is like the how the meeting starts, like people gathers, everybody like tense. Okay, so and so is going to address us, and everything is like everybody is so tense. And I found in most of the speech, the person who starts, he starts with a very relevant humor. Maybe he came to the town, some experience from the airport, maybe it is raining outside, and just something with the context with the raining outside, or something. If the weather is of a spring, so something related with the weather, and with a little bit of humor, and just that actually makes the whole environment relaxed, tension free. So this is a great skill that I wish to inculcate in myself at future. So what do you feel like this kind of thing, how can this kind of thing be built in yourself? Or yeah, if I
Oh, absolutely. See, Toastmaster speeches, for example, all prepared speeches, and as you go through the projects and the manuals, they tell specifically how to begin speeches. You know? What is an effective opening to a speech? How can it be, like you said, how can it be humorous? How can it be gripping if it starts with a story or an anecdote? How can it be inspiring itself if it starts with a quotation or the story about a famous person? even before you get onto the main subject of the speech, what can be the opening which makes it interesting? Now, like in this particular instance which you said, that the opening from the speaker's point of view was just a tension breaker. It was probably not related to the rest of his speech. That is also a good way to start. If you're going to give a keynote address, which is fairly long, and you know that I need to relax the people, I tell something, some related incident, anecdote to relax people. However, when you're giving a shorter speech, you may not have the luxury of spending 2 minutes on just giving a relaxing anecdote, which is not connected to the subject. So there, you have to choose a relaxing anecdote which is connected to the subject, which takes your speech forward also slightly. Like if it is about, say, women's empowerment, that is the theme of your speech, how to empower women. And you start with a small anecdote saying, today morning when I was getting ready and my wife was having a conversation with the maid, and you relate what they were talking about and some learning which came out of that related to women's empowerment. That particular thing is opening your speech. It is an interesting story. You could have some humor there, a couple of dialogues there. Those initial 2 minutes of story or 1.5 minutes of story will totally change the flavor of the speech for the audience. So how to start a prepared speech is a skill you will learn in Toastmasters, whether it's a short speech or a long speech. And it's very, very important to know.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we are slightly over time, and I'd like to thank Toastmaster Rajat ji for a very pragmatic and persuasive take on the Toastmaster journey that he has, and the way he answered all the questions. I believe we observed every bit of it, and it was all from experience and not just what we learn in theoretical settings. Thank you, Rajatji, for this wonderful session. And you capped you are the icing on the cake. This is the 7th guest connect session that we have had, and all were talking about what are the great things that we get out of Toastmasters. You brought it down to a corporate setting, which is the case here. Ours is a corporate club, and how pragmatically we can make best use of this platform. And I'm glad you touched upon almost all facets of working in teams and how Toastmaster builds up the communication team knowledge as well as the depth of the knowledge and the whole organization. So that was so great hearing to you, sir. And I would request Shiva to have the closing words, and then we can close this meeting. Thank you, Rajatji.
Sure, sure. I would like to thank Rajesh sir from the bottom of my heart. And the best part which I loved about today's entire session is the things which you have conveyed today is co-relatable. And these are the things which are facing in our day-to-day lives. Sometimes we are in the team leader's position, sometimes we are as a team member's position. So he has explained different conditions wherein we need to interact with them, or sometimes react in a different way, or speak to them in a different way, in a gentle way, so that we can tackle those situations in an appropriate manner. Thank you so much, Rajat sir. And at last, I would like to say, as Lingra sir always used to say, only one word from our end is gratitude, gratitude, and gratitude. Thank you so much, Rajat sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you all
for
for
the
joining this
enlightening
session. And yes, deep gratitude from all the USpeak members out here, sir, for finding time and sharing your experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
I'm
so much.
stopping the recording. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.